good afternoon, good evening. I don't know what when you're listening and watching this video. And today we're going to start another Flex Talks with a special guy here that comes straight from the UK. It's a friend of mine, just called Mike Clayton. Mike Clayton, thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation for taking part of the Flex Talks. And today we're going to talk about something very curious. What's the future and what's going on in the world, in the environment of project management? Project management. We don't have crystal balls,
No.
but as you are a very experienced guy, and maybe you can have some instinct and say what's the future, what's
Yeah.
going on here.
Yeah.
Mike,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe I don't know if everybody knows you, but just take some time to introduce you, what's going on, where you came from, what you do, and whatever. And then we start talking about the future of project management.
Yeah. So I'm Mike Clayton. I probably best known for the online PM courses website and YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is, I guess, where I've got the most followers. It's designed to provide project management learning for anyone. There's probably about 700 videos on there now. Each one is a kind of discrete uh, covers a discrete subject within project management. There are some interview videos, I believe. There's one with you, so it's nice to
I
reciprocate.
guess two. I guess two. I
Yeah, I think
remember
yeah,
two.
maybe two or yeah, maybe two. So there are some interviews with people who've got distinct point of view about project management, but most of it is explaining project management for people who either want to learn from the start or just need a top up of a particular topic. And then if you want to learn in a structured way, the onlinepmcourses.com website has my courses, but also other courses. I resell other courses that I've tested out and I think are worth your attention. Um, and yeah, I was a project manager back in the 1990s and the early aughts, working with Deloitte Consulting, delivering projects and programs for their clients here in the UK and in um, Western Europe. So that's my background, a bit of project management. Well, my deep background, of course, is in physics. So I started life as a physicist.
Physics. I didn't know that.
No, I was. So my PhD is in low temperature physics. So I studied
Wow.
um, quantum effects in the A phase of helium-3.
Kelvin, you were studying Kelvin temperatures and things like
Oh,
this.
millikelvin.
Yeah.
So yes, yeah, at around about 2 thousandths of a Kelvin
Wow.
temperature. So pretty cold.
Yeah.
You have to do that in Northern Europe, otherwise it's just too warm. So yeah, so I started life as a physicist. So I kind of bring a fairly rigorous thought process to project management. But over the years of doing it, I learned that actually a large part of project, what makes a project manager successful isn't the rigorous thinking. It's being able to work with people. You can't, it's easy to learn how to deliver a project if you've just had a bunch of robots, which of course might be the future of project management. But where you've got a bunch of people, it's much harder. And that's the real lesson I learned through 13 years of delivering projects for clients is the people are the challenge. And I don't think that's
Oh,
actually going to change. We might get
everything changes. Everything changes.
we might
Everything.
get robot team members,
We
but
are we
we're
are
never
both
going to be
risk
delivering
management.
projects for robots. The
Yeah,
client
we
is
are
always
both
going
risk
to be,
management guys. We're both risk management guys. You have a book. I have a book. Okay, I
yeah,
read your book. It's one of. Thank you for sending me the book. And see, but it's curious to understand. I have interviewed some people here, and some of them, the origin, the background for it, but there's nothing to do with project management. Just like me, there's nothing to do. And then something changed, and now we are project managers. So I'm a fighter pilot. You are a physicist, and there are some guys that are many different things. This is interesting because sometimes you can take some skills that we had before and adapt for project management career, and it's very curious. And a lot of people
yeah.
came from other
Well, nobody is born a project manager. You
nobody.
don't come out with project manager stamped on your forehead. But I
There
do
isn't, there isn't
think,
a university, a regular training for university. Oh, no, it
yeah,
doesn't.
but no, but I do think that I don't know whether it's genetic, or I suspect it's something about the way we grow up, the environment in which we grow up, and our experiences lead us to be the sort of person who likes to get stuff done. I think there are some people who actually get a lot of kind of gratification from feeling they've achieved something.
Hmm.
So David McClellan talked about three human needs that drive us in the workplace. And he talked about the need for power, the need for affiliation, and the need for achievement. And so the
I
need for
love
power,
this.
sorry?
Power, affiliation, achievement. I
Yeah,
love
so
that.
affiliation is just basically relationships, being part of a group, fitting in.
Taking part of a
Um,
group, taking part,
so,
achieving
so
things together. I think achieving things together. I think it's
yeah,
good.
exactly. Well, it's less about achieving things and more about together. So the
Oh,
need for power is the people who have a need for power want to be in charge. They want people to look up to them. They want to be the big person, the big man, the big woman, and that drives their decisions. And of course, it becomes toxic when they have some power, and then the need for power manifests in them holding on to the power they've got and doing anything they can to avoid losing it. And we see that play out in politics around the world, where
mhm.
the need for power is most evident. The need for affiliation is the desire to fit in. And of course, the toxic kind of mirror of that is, again, I'll please you just so that I don't lose you as a friend or a colleague. And of course,
Mhm.
that leads to self sabotage and to poor decision making. We're aware of group, but the need for achievement, that's about people who find their motivation in basically putting a tick in the box when they get something done. And
I know exactly what you're doing. I know
yeah,
exactly what you're doing. As a mountaineer, climbing mountains and running marathons, everything. I was like, oh, check, check,
yeah.
check, check,
Every time you
check.
pull out a piton because you've got to the next level, that's a big thing. And uh, and I think
But
again,
I
and
think it
then
comes
also,
from dopamine. It's from dopamine. You're creating
yeah,
dopamine,
yeah.
and it's
But
I did
again,
it. The
it's all
satisfaction.
dopamine.
Yeah, it's
It's
all
all dopamine.
dopamine.
The power people, they get a dopamine hit from
Yeah,
having people kowtow to them and do what they tell them to. The affiliation people get a dopamine hit when they're with a group of people who they
that's
like.
it.
Project managers, I think a lot of us are high need for achievement people. We get our little dopamine hit when something gets done. And
Yeah.
but it does have a toxic side. It's not that, the
No,
other
no,
two
no.
have a toxic side, but achievement doesn't. Basically, the people who exhibit the toxic side of it, they won't take risks because they're too worried that they will fail.
Hmm.
Um, and and of course, those people make good project managers when they're delivering easy projects. But when they're confronted with complex, challenging, innovative projects that they've never encountered, they can't cope because their need for achievement means they are not prepared to take a risk and lose ground. Whereas you and I know that big complex projects, you have to take some chances. They're calculated chances. We sit down and we work with our team to look at the risks and we to look at the alternatives, and then we decide what we're going to do and we have contingencies in place. But ultimately, we've got to try things that we've never tried before, and there's risk. And the need for achievement has to be subsumed by the willingness to take those risks. And of course, McClellan didn't say we are all one or the other or the other. We're not.
It's a
You don't fit in
combination of
one
that.
box and I fit in another. We have. It's like a set of dials, and my dial settings might have need for achievement set higher in my brain.
So
Um,
some levers
yeah,
that we have to
yeah,
turn on.
yeah. And I suspect, although I don't know, but I suspect that we change as we go through life, and our experiences
Yeah,
change us.
yeah.
And
Which
so we might
which
start off at one position, and our experiences and our personalities lead us to kind of shift and perhaps to want more power or need less affiliation or whatever. So I think we're not born project managers, but I think our early experiences fit us well to project management. because we get satisfaction from the things that project management delivers, and achievement is one of those things. But also
Yeah.
affiliation, because I mean, I would say, a good project manager needs to work well with a team. What a good project manager doesn't need is a need for power, because frankly, we don't have much power. We do what we are commissioned to do, and we lead through influence far more than we do through authority.
We must.
Yeah.
We must. Mike, okay, you said you started in the 90s or 80s or 90s, I think the 90s,
Yeah,
90s
I,
even.
I, I my first day at work as a consultant was the 2nd of January 1990.
1990. Oh my God. I wasn't even
Yeah,
born
I
that
am that old. Yes.
time. I wasn't even born that time, so
And
it's okay.
well, although and
Oh,
of course I've been at
so
university for 7 years, so so
I graduated in 89.
well, so did
Okay.
I, but that was my postgrad.
Okay. What what do you think about before talking about the future of project management, I want to understand something that happened in the past.
Yeah,
What's the difference on that environment in the 90s and what do you think things the environment is now? What's the difference between the environments in the 90s and now,
yeah.
or
That's a
30
really
years
interesting
later,
question.
30 years later?
So I'm going to start off with what I think is pretty much the same, which is that most project managers are working to deliver the project they're asked to deliver using the resources that they've got available to the best of their abilities. That hasn't changed. We
Do
have
you think this thing changed since the pyramids?
No, of course it hasn't. It hasn't changed since Stonehenge, which is even older, I think. I don't know. I mean, whatever the oldest construction we have records
Yeah,
of,
yes,
yeah, they were doing it exactly the same way. They were thinking
this is
about,
good.
okay,
This is good to listen. This is good to listen.
yeah,
This is good.
who have we got available? What materials have we got? What's our deadline? What's the pressure? Is it political pressure? Is it schedule pressure? Is it whatever?
Sponsors
And
pressure, the
what
king's
what
pressure, whatever. The
what's
CEO's
what's the
pressure.
priorities? What can we let slip? Where do we have to get it absolutely right, quality wise? Where can we, so I mean, I don't know whether you've been to Peru, but I visited Peru years ago, and there's this fantastic construction called, I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce it correctly, so Peruvian audience beware, but I think it's something like Sacsayhuaman, and it's this
I've been there.
construction, and
I've been there.
it's built with these massive rock
Blocks.
blocks, which are, I mean, I'm doing that, and I'm, outside the screen, and I'm nowhere near. Some of them are the size of the room I'm in, and they're all fitted together without mortar,
No, nothing. No,
and
just fitting.
and you
Just
couldn't you couldn't get a piece of paper between them. They are
yeah.
so tightly fitted, so
Six,
elegantly fitted.
6 centuries ago. Six
This,
centuries ago.
yeah, and this was a group of project managers who said to their workforce, quality is what matters, because we are expecting tourists in 6,000 years' time to come along
trying
and
to
say,
trying to put
how the
some.
blazes did they do that? And of course, this is where you get ridiculous things where people say, well, I couldn't do that. Could you do that? I couldn't do that. If I'm smart, I've got a PhD. I couldn't do that. So it can't have been ordinary human beings. It must have been aliens. And we forget that ordinary human beings are astonishingly capable at doing things that they have trained and practiced to do for a lifetime. And if what you've trained and practiced to do for a lifetime is to use stone and bronze tools to make a flat surface on rock, then you can do it. And so, yeah, not that. So back to the 1990s, project managers are getting pretty much the same kind of training. They're doing the same kind of job. So what's different? I think I'm going to pick out two things. Definitely, the technology we use to support ourselves is more sophisticated than it was then. I mean, we were using, I remember, excuse me, I remember towards the end of the 90s, we had our first, what you would call collaboration tool.
Mm.
And looking back, we thought that was amazing. It was using a technology. The first one we used at Deloitte was using a technology called Lotus Notes, which you may or may not remember,
Lotus
and your
notes. Yeah.
older
Yeah.
listeners will remember Lotus Notes. And we
Yeah.
thought I thought this is fantastic. This is going to
That's
transform
it.
project. The We never would have had no concept of how good tools like Jira and Monday and Asana and things like Slack, how good they could be. And I have no doubt projecting forward, they'll be even better,
Yeah.
in 10 years' time. So the technology has changed. Even the simple things like spreadsheets. I was taught to build spreadsheets on a diagonal because that way you could add a row or a column and it wouldn't affect any other part of the spreadsheet. Nobody's taught that now for the simple reason that your spreadsheet has tabs. And if you want to put multiple tables, you put them in different tabs. But we only had one tab. So, and this was Lotus 123 or whatever. So before Excel. So
Yeah.
we have better technology. The other thing I think that has changed, and I know you and I share a perspective that agile isn't a new set of ways of doing things. It's just a new way of talking about a
It's
set of things.
70 years. It's
Yeah,
70
yeah,
years.
yeah. But the fact is that project management, the big change, and it's the change we've seen in the world in the last to grow in the world, is project management has become polarized. The last 10
Ugh.
years, we've seen this growth of polarization. You've seen these people saying, well, if you're not doing agile, then you're not doing proper project management. Or yeah, agile, it's only suitable for, a tiny use case. Because yes, agile started off as being about software engineering, not about project management. And I think that polarization has done the project community a disservice because
Yeah.
it has
A
left people
huge,
feeling,
huge disservice.
yeah,
Huge disservice.
yeah. So I
Huge.
think those are the two big changes I
Mike,
draw. I
stop,
think,
stop, stop interrupting you. Stop
yeah,
interrupting you. You're talking a very important point because this polarization here and the disservice that you're talking about, I think, I don't think we have to converge to everybody to a single point. Otherwise,
no,
it's going to be bad. Otherwise, it's going to be bad. But I think we have to a common sense of what we
yeah,
do, what we have to do, but not to put them in extremes.
yeah,
I think this is the service that you're talking about, isn't it?
yeah,
Oh no,
yeah,
you are wrong. I'm right. You are
yeah,
bad. I'm good.
yeah.
So you are
Polarity
black.
thinking.
I am white. What's
Yeah,
this?
yeah. It's wrong. So look, I mean, I'd liken it to um,
But who
someone
created
who,
this? Who
sorry.
created this polarization?
Well, I don't want to
Okay,
go
don't
into.
talk. Okay,
I
don't
don't want
talk.
to throw blame around because the better
Don't
people will get
talk.
upset.
Don't talk.
But I think the people who created this know who they are. The kind
Yeah.
of mindset that the people with that kind of mindset, they know who they are and they think they're right. Um, but but look, let's say that your hobby is making stuff,
Yeah.
and someone said, well, okay, so you need a set of chisels and a set of screwdrivers and and a plane and all these woodworking tools so that you can make stuff out of wood. And then someone says, no, 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 forget all of that. You need a lathe and a mill and files so that you can make stuff out of wood. But what if you want to make stuff that has wood in it and metal in it and plastic in it? Anyone who's really passionate about making stuff may well have a workshop full of tools that can work with wood, plastic, fabric, metal. They'll have
Whatever.
they'll
Stand,
have
whatever.
3D
Diamond, whatever.
printers. They'll have soldering irons and electronics because they won't want to get to a part of their fabrication and think, oh, I haven't got the tools for that. So why should project managers get to a part of their delivery and say, well, if only I had some agile tools, but I don't because I'm a predictive project manager. That would be stupid. They would say, look, the bigger your toolbox, the more tools you put in your toolbox, the easier it will be to get the job done right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly because I always talk about an example. If you were a cooker, okay, you're a chef. You were a
Yeah,
chef. You see, okay, if I want to cook rice, You got some silverware. You want to do pasta, it's another stuff.
Yeah,
Okay, whatever, do it. And you are a chef. That's it.
yeah. And
Period.
actually, I'm sure it's the same in pretty much every country where people are listening to. We have a show called Master Chef where you have amateur chefs cooking,
Yeah,
and one of the common themes is there's always going to be some brilliant chefs who do fusion cooking, and they'll do a fusion of Thai and Brazilian cooking. In fact, on the British Master Chef at the moment, we've got a Brazilian chef coming through.
yeah.
He's not a chef; he's a Brazilian living in Britain, cooking on this show, and he's bringing in Brazilian and European things. Um, it would be it would be stupid to think that you can't mix and match because pretty much every element of our culture is a mix and match of something.
One curious thing about project management I see, because some people say, no, we can do things like this, we can do things like that. And I see things happening only in the project management environment. I don't see things like this in engineering, on technical engineering. I don't think like things like this in sports. I don't see,
Hmm.
but in project management, we see this polarization that you said. This is
Yeah,
very curious. This is
yeah.
very curious.
Top sports people cross training is how they get fitter and faster
That-
and stronger. Yeah, and we need to cross train, and we don't just need to cross train between adaptive techniques and predictive techniques. We also need to understand change management, business transformation, business operations, business analysis. We need to have an understanding of everything that goes on in the organizations where we seek to make change happen.
yeah,
Otherwise, we're going to find we run into problems. Now, we don't need to be an expert in all of it. What we
it's
need to
impossible.
know is, I've got to a point where the person I need to speak to is this person because
Yeah.
I understand that they're the person who has the deep knowledge that I need to draw on to be successful.
Ford said that in the 20s, 1920s. He said, "Oh, I'm not an expert on everything, but I know who knows.
Yeah,
I know someone who knows
exactly.
that."
There is nothing new in how humans do stuff. We are just using all that old all those old approaches to create new tools to help us. Which is, that's the big change that's really happened. The obvious change is, we've got better software and that allows us to be more productive. And I don't think it will come as a surprise to anyone listening that, and this is technically a spoiler, but one of the big changes that will happen over the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years is more and better technology will change the way we do some things, and it will make some things much easier to do, and possibly some things much harder to do.
Just like we do today, that was not what we're doing today with the tools that we have, with the technology we have, that was not possible 30 years ago.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it. It's the same thing. Technology will help us doing something most
yeah,
of the time. The evolution, we have to adapt to this.
yeah. But look, uh, in even in the 1960s, NASA had computers to do big, complicated sums. Those
Yeah.
computers were women who were very adept at maths. Um,
There's a movie
Now,
about that. There's a
yeah,
movie about
exactly,
that.
yeah, exactly,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, and the book is fantastic, and the those people, their jobs aren't there in the same way, but the task they did still gets done. It just gets done in an instant. The whole program to get people on the moon the first time had what we would call computing power, actual electronic computing power, that was less than that. This thing has more computing power in it than NASA had available to it. If you'd have given this to a NASA engineer and said, "Here's how you program it," they would have just been over the moon. I mean,
Yeah,
literally.
I heard a story. I heard a story that they have an equipment that just like a storage or a computer or something that are 1 cubic meter, I think one by one by one by one here, and to storage 1 mega.
Yeah,
And the project was delayed almost 1 year to reduce 1 mega in 1 cubic meter.
yeah. But
One
look,
cubic, 1 mega.
yeah,
I have 1 terabyte here.
yeah. But I mean, you flew modern fighter jets, but your predecessors. were flying fighter jets where the navigation system was basically a flat paper map that was
Yeah,
being moved underneath a crosshair. And
that's it.
that's how they had their kind of display of where they were. It was now,
Magnetic compass,
yeah,
and that's it.
absolutely. Yeah, and frankly, it got human beings all over the globe hundreds of years ago. So nothing important, nothing fundamental has changed, but the tools we have are just that bit sharper and that bit cleverer. They've got that bit more leverage. That's all it is. It's just like we've taken um, a small crowbar and we've created a much bigger crowbar, so we can lever bigger things off much faster. That's my sense of how things have changed.
Hmm. And this is how we're living now. This is how
Yeah,
we're living now. But now let's talk about the future.
yeah.
What do you really think that things will look like in 10 or 20 years? Is there a trend? Is there a trend? Is there a, okay, this is, we talk to many people. You talk to many guys. We
Mm,
know many guys here. And what do you think people are thinking about? What's going on?
okay. Well, I mean, nobody's going to be surprised if I talk about data and AI. So I'm going to put that to one side for a moment and come back to it.
Okay.
Let's stick
Okay.
with this conversation about um, adaptive, predictive, hybrid. I think we have seen over the last 10, 15 years the development of approaches to project management which have aimed to be true hybrids of adaptive and predictive. Um, my sense is that none of them have become, if you like, mainstream. This is the way everyone does things. I don't think there is a single methodology or framework that everyone uses. But I think what we are starting to see is truly now we are seeing younger project managers learning multiple frameworks, multiple approaches. And so I think the trend is towards what I call transparency. And I know this is something that you've thought deeply about as well. And by transparency, I mean the approach that we take is kind of the underlying, if you like, labeled, named, branded approaches, whether you call it flex,
No, no label management.
yeah, but whether you call it flex, whether you call it Prince 2, whether you call it Scrum, disciplined agile, even waterfall, which is a term I absolutely hate and deprecate. Um, whatever those are disappearing. Those are going to disappear. Project managers are going to learn a subset of all of these because you don't need to learn them all because you learn a few and you've got pretty much all the ideas. And then if you discover there's some new ideas in another one, you learn that. But um, they're going to accumulate all these different ideas and then they're just going to deliver projects. They're going to do what project managers have always done, which is say, right, I've got a big toolbox of ideas. I've got a problem to solve. Which is the one for this problem? And so I
Or
think
which is the combination of them?
yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. A combination for the project. And then when I've got a particular challenge to meet, what can I do? And so I think I've spoken to people about agile and I've even asked outright, what's the future of agile? And the answer I get, I think, this is me, not them speaking, but if I um, summarize extremely, but I think fairly, the future of agile is yeah, tiny little bit of incremental development, which I think is, you know, sort of agile. It's certainly, but I don't see a revolutionary change in agile. I see no signs on the horizon of a whole new movement of project management approach coming up. Like agile kind of appeared in 2001 with the manifesto. I don't see anything likely to pop up. What I just see is um, people like you will find new ways to articulate things, new tools to draw into project management that haven't been there before. One of the things that first attracted me to Flex was, some of the canvases and tools that you brought in, which I thought, oh, they're good. There's some
The
new
VMO, you remember the VMO ad that was, it
yeah.
captured attention.
But also, you created that kind of handbook of, I can't remember what they're called, but the canvases, project tools. You made a variant on SWOT analysis, which I thought had some nice ideas in it. So there were things that you kind of brought in, which I thought, oh yes, there's someone who's like me bringing in ideas from elsewhere. And then there were some ideas I thought, oh, I've never even seen those. So, and I think we will always have people doing that, but I don't think any of them are going to kind of cut through and become, if you like, a new orthodoxy. I think those days of people seeking an orthodoxy are gone, and I think that's good. I think we just need that.
This is more than good. This is more than good.
Yeah, exactly. We just need people who can deliver stuff, and I don't see anything big, new, supplanting project management, but I do think that um, to a first approximation, the future of project management is data.
Data.
Data. I think,
Stop.
yeah, you and
Stop.
I,
Stop. Stop. Stop.
yeah,
Stop. One thing. I agree with you. I agree with you. But before you're moving on, I want to ask you a question.
yeah,
You're talking about hybrid or whatever, a mix of many things, the combination of many things. Okay. And why do we only have Prince 2 Agile and Flex available in the market? Because you don't see a formal methodology or frameworks as like, because the first one I read about this formal book or framework or methodology is Prince 2 Agile.
right.
It was the first one formally available. Okay. And the next one I think is Flex. And there's no other one. Which one you read? I don't see that. I
What
see
for what is hybrid?
people talking about it, but I do not see people producing things about hybrid or a mix of them. You see that? I see. I don't see.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the Frank Turley and Nader Ag with Omimo producing P3 for projects and P5 for portfolios and P1 for tasks, and I don't doubt they'll produce P2 for products and P4 for programs at some point. Um, so that, and those are truly um, hybrid in the sense that they don't kind of purport to be agile, and they don't purport to be um, predictive. They purport to bring in, but their point of view, which is different to yours and Flex, is what's the absolute minimum we can say you need to do for to deliver projects, to deliver programs, to deliver portfolios. It's entirely up to anyone to look at their minimalist approach and say, well, I wouldn't have included that, but you did, so
Mm.
it's not minimal. Or what about this? I think it's essential, and you've ignored it. You clearly don't think it is. People will have different views, but great. It's a fantastic tool. There's a methodology called hybrid, which I think is a poor name for, but it's designed to be a hybrid methodology. I confess I didn't get my head completely around it, but it does seem to be quite focused on project tier work in a technical environment. But fundamentally, what is it? It's basically a structured wraparound with a cyclical middle. So a lot of these hybrid methodologies are a bit like a Swiss roll. You know,
Mm.
you've got a structure around the outside and something gooey in the inside, which repeats. So yeah, there
Do
are
you know
other.
why I think it's happening? Do you know why I think this is happening in this way? Because I think it's very hard, very, very hard for people to explain how to put things together.
Yeah.
People just say, okay, we have the flexibility, you have the freedom to put everything together, but how you do it?
Well, I think
You see that?
I tell you what I think is different about Flex
Okay.
to every other approach. And I don't know whether it's how you constructed it, but it's how it appears to have been constructed. So if I take like Prince 2 Agile, clearly what someone did was said, well, we've got Prince 2, and although we've always said it's methodology agnostic, fundamentally it's a predictive process. And we've got Agile, which is fundamentally an adaptive process. So let's scrunch them together, find a way to
Mhm.
make them work together, and call it hybrid. Um, and if you look at hybrid, that's the same. And to a first approximation, I think probably P3, P4, P5, they are the same. What Flex looks like to me when I attended your workshops and read the booklets. I confess I haven't fully read the newest version, but even going back to the beginning, what struck me was you started with a picture of the enterprise
That's
and
it.
you said, what does the enterprise need to do and what structures does it need to do it? You didn't start with, well, there's two approaches to doing stuff. Let's crunch them together. You seem to have started with, there's an enterprise that needs to get stuff done. What structures does it need to create, and what disciplines and what tools does it need to get them done? And so I think, and I'm glad that you've now moved away from calling it flex hybrid and to
That's it.
calling it just flex, because it isn't really. It's hybrid in the sense that it encompasses everything, but
That's why I removed the hybrid
yeah,
name.
but actually, it's a way of looking at organizational um, needs for evolution or revolution. I'm not even going to use the word change or transformation because they're loaded words in our world. But basically, an organization can only do one of two things. Well, one of three things, I suppose. It can evolve. It can go through a revolution. It can go through a devolution process of going backwards, or it can
Devolution.
collapse, or it can collapse.
Yeah, you
Um,
can collapse.
Nobody in our business wants it to go backwards or collapse. So fundamentally, what we are in the business of doing is either moving it forward a bit at a time or moving it forward in a big giant leap. Um, and
Leap? Leap?
yeah,
Let's talk about leap later. Let's talk about leap later.
but that's what we do, isn't it? We move things forward. We create new stuff that takes our employers or our clients forward. And Flex appears to me to say, right, okay, well, what do we need to have in place to do that from the point of view of the whole organization? And that's why I liked it when I first saw it. And so I think I wouldn't put Flex in the same category as Prince to Agile. I think they're very different beasts.
Wow. Yeah, because uh, Prince Agile is just for managing projects and delivering products. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
But Flex, a whole strategy, the whole strategy, VMOs, operations, and all the
yeah,
things together. It's not, this is why Flex is a business it's a, so organizational model. It's a
yeah,
organizational management model. That's it. It's not
yeah,
for projects. Oh,
yeah,
business Flex is a project management model, framework, or methodology, whatever. No, it's not.
yeah,
It's a business model. It's a business model. That's it.
yeah,
You see, you see why I have this background here?
yeah,
Because this is an ecosystem.
yeah,
And this is what organization is. It's an ecosystem.
yeah,
So this is a project, and this is another project, but this is finance, and this is logistics, this is commercial, this is your strategy. You have to put everything together because you cannot manage a project, whatever it is, a portfolio, if you don't see the whole picture. You can't do that. And this is what Frax brings you. Let's see then put the things together and have this ecosystem working
yeah,
properly. So this is completely different from Prince to Agile. And that's the point. Okay,
yeah,
so the future is data.
yeah.
And why and how do you see this picture?
Well, it seems to me that project managers, certainly since I've been managing projects, have cared about data. We've we've wanted to gather it, we've wanted to analyze it. We've used tools like discounted cash flows to justify the projects or to examine the potential projects that we're going to deliver, if I'm being pedantic, and thinking good governance. We've used tools like earned value analysis to track how they're going. We've looked at, resource leveling, resource smoothing, all of that is data driven. But we've been limited by our ability to really understand and work with the amount of data that there is. And that has been both a limitation on the data that's available, but also a limitation on our ability to manage data. Project managers are not actually are not largely data engineers. We're not trained in data analytics. Um, I think what is happening now with two trends. One is older than the other. One trend is, the business analytics that has been pervading corporations now, probably for the last 15 to 20 years. Your sales forces and SAPs have been really bringing data to the fore, and making more available and gathering more data since the late 90s, early aughts. And then more recently, we've had the, if you like, the consumer tier enterprise tools like Power BI, which are kind of bringing that to people's desktops in a way that they hadn't done before. But that has still always been hampered by the fact that human beings need to get their heads around, what data do I need? Where do I get it from? How do I compare apples with oranges? How do I look at two things which are formatted differently, use different labels? What questions should I be asking? What questions can I ask? We're not trained in data analytics. But then we have this second trend, which is the emergence of artificial intelligence and the ability of the artificial intelligence to see two data fields and say they are recording data about the same thing, even though they've got a different label. They're able to work, I was going to say 24 hours a day, but mostly it only takes about 5 minutes. They're able to work super fast to look at this vast amount of data and give us answers, give us business knowledge, business wisdom based on that. And there are problems with that now. It is not yet perfect, but the trend is to better and better quality data. Now we've realized how important it is. The trend is to better and better tools to analyze it, but they're tools that are in the hands of AI. So I don't need necessarily to learn different ways to calculate significance of data. The AI has it embedded in its tool set. And so I can say, tell me the patterns, tell me what the important elements are. And the danger, of course, is today, I won't know if it's got it right or wrong because I don't have the critical faculties, the data analytics experience, or the time to look through 20 million records. But I think the future is data because data will drive AI, and AI will enable us to do things that we can't do now in terms of the scale and the pace. Yes, we can do the things that we'll be able to do in 20 years' time now, and we were doing them when we were building the pyramids. But what might have taken the pyramid builders hundreds of people, hundreds of hours of work to do, just like it might have taken hundreds of hours for a group of women to calculate trajectories to the moon. And now my desktop computer could probably do those calculations in a blink of an eye, faster than I can.
Yeah,
AI
probably.
will be able to analyze these huge data sets very fast. It will be able to make recommendations. It will be able to act on them.
But do you think this data will be available?
I think
Do you think
increasingly,
companies will
because,
put their data, do you think companies will put their data available for
well,
other companies to use them? That's the problem.
now there's a chap in the UK called Martin Paver who's making a big appeal for organizations to make their data openly available so that
Uh,
you can train AI on huge data sets.
they need it.
He's
They need
getting
data.
he's
They
getting
need big
frustrated.
data.
Sorry.
They need big data
Yeah,
in small
but of
companies and
course,
medium companies that they don't have it.
yeah,
How are they
but
going to use it?
and it's no great surprise that he's running into frustrations with companies
That's
saying
it.
we can't do that. And in the UK, one of the big public debates, if you look below the top tier of headlines in the newspapers, is we know, or at least when I say we know, those people who think about this carefully know that if you could access the patient records of millions of patients throughout their whole lifetimes over many, many years, AI could draw conclusions about factors in health, factors in disease, factors in cure, factors in all sorts of things, which could suggest ways to go in terms of diagnostics, ways to go in terms of
Treatments
drugs,
and
therapies, everything. But of course,
everybody will benefit from that. Everybody will
yeah,
benefit
yeah,
from that.
and the National Health Service in the UK has one of the biggest, most coherent databases on the planet. Because if, especially if you're prepared to look at, written patient records, they go back to the 1950s. And so you've got these huge longitudinal studies that have been done inadvertently. And we know that if you could put all of that in, you would get a lot of good science out of it, potentially.
Yeah.
But of course, how do you anonymize it so that I don't feel my data is being used? Henrietta Lacks is a woman who had, I think, cervical cancer, and her cells were used to create therapies, but without her permission. And
Oh,
so drug companies are making millions and millions of dollars every year based
yeah.
on innovations, based on her cancer cell lines, and her family has got no benefit from that, and there was no permission asked. So we have to get right things like privacy, data security, proper anonymity, and proper credit. Like my most recent book, am I allowed to plug my most recent book? Is called How to Negotiate, and I'm not plugging it because I want to plug it. I want to make a point. I wrote 14 books a number of years ago, and then I took a break from writing books, and then I was asked to write this, and I got my contract through, and for the first time in a book contract, it had two clauses that I'd never seen before. One didn't surprise me at all. It said, you may not use AI to write this book because they want me to write. Yeah, if my publishers wanted AI to write a book, they wouldn't need me. They could put in a few prompts, and I reckon in about a day's work, I could produce this book. Not this book, but a book like it with the same broad coverage. It didn't surprise me. It said you may not use AI. What I hadn't thought about is it said you may not make any of your notes or manuscript available to AI. And the reason they put that in is because a lot of old books had been scanned and made available on the internet, and then AI tools are trained on those books. So I would not be surprised if all my other books, the other 14 of them, are all that knowledge is somewhere in ChatGPT, in Perplexity, in Claude, in Gemini,
Yeah.
without my permission, without my consent, and here's the kicker, without me getting any royalties for it.
Yeah.
Each of those books I probably spent several months producing, and I'm not getting any benefit. And the same is true for artists, for musicians, for anyone who has created anything. And I'm not saying, this is hugely, innovative. Most of my books don't have
It's
new
Mike, it's
ideas.
inevitable. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
So we have to find a way to not only protect people's data, but also reward people properly for the data they contribute. And that includes the companies who might put data into the kind of databases that AIs could use, for example, to predict the likelihood that a project is going to finish on time. I mean, if you had, and here's the other problem. For my whole career, I have encountered people fudging the project reports.
Mm.
We say, oh, well, the project's going to be delivering on time, but you ignore the fact that you re-baselined halfway through the project and it's delivering on time against a second baseline, not against your original predictions. Now, if AI is going to make sensible predictions about risks, about stakeholder behaviors, about delivery schedules, about budgets and cost overruns, if it's going to make good predictions about those, then it has to have good data. Otherwise, it will make predictions based on fake data, data that has been politically massaged by people in an organization who are afraid to speak truth to power, or who have been told that they may not put in their project report that the project is over budget. Instead, they must find a source of funding from another department. Um, I'm sure you've seen that happen. I've seen it happen. I'm sure everyone who is listening has either seen it or heard of it. And if that's the data that's used, then AI will just produce poor results. But as we come to rely on AI, I think we will be more honest because we know that that is what we have to do.
Do you think when the time comes in the future that project managers and new project managers will be only relying on the data rather than on the cognition?
On
The cognition, the ability to,
cognition,
because today we
thinking.
think about things, we discuss, we think
Well,
about, we
yeah, I
realize, we
think
create things.
I tell
And
you,
because
I think I am one of the things that worries me. It's not. I don't think projects will rely only on data, but one of the things I do think is that project managers may stop, may get out of the habit of thinking for themselves. Um, I I have courses on a platform where have been seeing for the last year people who are submitting exercise answers that are developed by AI, that have been written by AI. It's pretty
exactly.
obvious when they do it. Because frankly, the average response by the AI is better than the average response by the people. To which you might say, well, that's good, isn't it? AI can give better responses, so we should use AI. But the fact is that by using AI, if all you do is ask AI and then you copy the paste the answer, you don't learn anything. So
No,
you
no,
will
no.
never get better. And
That's my problem. So if you think that future of project management or any career is data,
yeah,
we will be used, will be addicted to data analysis, and we'll stop thinking about things. We stop evolving our thoughts or other thing,
yeah.
and we are
So
only
what we need to
relying
do,
on the data that they are providing us,
yeah,
and we'll never evolve as a human being.
yeah. So what we need to do is we need to shift our whole education system, but from our perspective, project management training away from analyzing situations to how do you analyze what the AI is telling you? How do you think properly critically? Here's an example. So one of the things that AI is now able to do is it's able to take weak signals from human communication. It can read all your emails and it can get a sense over time that maybe your mood is shifting. Maybe it senses, oh, there's something about today, you seem to be happier. Or over the last couple of weeks, you seem to be less happy or more concerned about something. Now, that AI can then flag up to the project manager. Alio seems to be worried about something. So, all his emails, all the analysis of his contributions or lack of contributions in project meetings from the meeting notes suggests that he's worried about something. And then I, as a project manager, could go to you and I could say, Elio, just want to check in with you. Is there anything that's concerning you about the project? And you might say, no, the project's fine. I'm just, a bit down at the moment, stuff going on. And now that's good. That's really good to be able to do that. Except one of the things I learned in my active project management is it's important to learn to read people.
That's it.
It's important for me to see your body language coming into the meeting and think to myself, Elio's a bit down today. I
That's it.
wonder if that's relevant or it's just a bad day. And so I should be seeing those patterns. So it's just like every other tool. A fool with a tool is still a fool. If if I don't learn how to use that tool to my advantage, and all I do is take advantage of that tool, then I become a poorer project professional. But if I learn how to be critical, how to use it to enhance, to test out my intuition, my feelings, to test my thinking, if I learn how to take that data and then think about it carefully, talk it over with trusted colleagues, then I become a better project manager. And the fact is that one of those trusted colleagues will be a some future version of a large language model. You can find tools, AI tools that will coach you, will mentor you, will talk things through with you, will counsel you. All that will become more and more available up to the point where, and this was the kind of joke I made about if projects be easy if your team was made of robots, maybe there will come a time when I a lot of the work is done by agentic AI tools, which just get it done. And as a project manager, all I am doing is reviewing the different agents, where they are, checking that they're making, that the next decision they need me to make, I understand it, and then I can make that decision and let them get on with it. And that may well be where we get to, is that project managers have fewer human team members and are skilled at assessing the work that AI is doing in the way that you and I have learned through our careers to become skilled at assessing the work that humans are doing. You and
Yeah,
I,
one thing that I'm observing that we are doing this, everybody's doing this, everybody's using this stuff,
yeah,
and people are changing cognition for productivity.
mm, yes,
And it worries me. It worries a
yes,
lot.
absolutely. So it's just
You're
like,
losing the capacity, ability to make reasonable
yeah.
decisions because we rely on the data, we rely on the responses because it's comfortable. We're very addicted. It's easily addictable,
So
completely addictable.
go back to the early 20th century, like, I don't know,
Okay.
1910s or whatever. So what was the model of workplace management? I don't think it was a model that we would recognize as leadership today. It was pure
Mhm.
management. It was command and control. Just like most people think that, the military works, but you and I know militaries haven't really worked on command and control. Not sophisticated Western militaries haven't worked on command and control for years because you trust me. But in back in the early 1900s, a boss would come in and tell the workers what to do, and they would do it.
Yeah,
And if they didn't do it, they would shout at them, they would threaten them, and ultimately they would sack them. And quite possibly, in some parts of the world, they would beat them as well and abuse them. Um, Over the 20th century, we have learned that if we become skilled as managers at leading people, at understanding what they're good at, understanding their moods and their motivations, and helping them to learn and asking them good questions and listening to their answers, we can get better work out of them. And that has been the journey of management and leadership from, let's say, 1900 to 2000. I suspect it will take almost as long, and it will be a very similar journey from 2000 to 2100, will be a journey of business professionals interacting with LLMs by saying, oh, tell me the answer to this question and I'll paste it into my report, which is kind of like telling your staff what to do, to working with AI, training it in what you need, training it in how to do the job for you. And I think in 80 years time, 70, 80 years time, people like you and I will be sitting talking in some way to each other, or maybe I know you'll be interviewing an AI, or an AI will be interviewing me, and we'll be looking back and saying, well, the journey has been, just think back in the early 2000s, people were telling ChatGPT what to do, and then if they didn't like the answer, they'd close the window and talk to Gemini. What a stupid way to behave. And then
that's it.
when Gemini told them the answer they wanted, they were happy and they didn't check it and they didn't ask further questions. They didn't ask Gemini or ChatGPT to review that answer. They just accepted it. And then they went their merry way. And look at some of the calamities which happened in the early 2030s because people trusted AI. But we got through it.
Yeah.
And I
And we
think
have to
that
go
is,
through. We have to go through it to learn from it. We
and
have
it's
to
the
learn.
same with legislation. Like the motor vehicle started to appear around that same time, early 20th century. And and then accidents started happening and people started getting killed. And it probably took about 30 years for legislation to start to catch up. In America, in the USA, they have a law uh, of jaywalking. And as a European, when I first went to Los Angeles, I crossed the road because I looked to the left and I looked to the right and I couldn't see a car anywhere. I also didn't spot the policeman. So I crossed the road and a policeman said, "Oh, I'm doing you for jaywalking." But the road's clear. We're standing in the middle of the road. You've come up to me in the middle of the road and there's no cars. Ah, jaywalking. So an offence. Why is jaywalking an offence in the US? Because the motor manufacturers did not produce cars that were safe enough, had good enough brakes, so people were getting killed. And the motor manufacturers persuaded the legislators to blame the pedestrians.
Wow.
And and it's turning red. Basically, I don't know what it was like in Brazil when you were growing up, but it was, I think, around the 1970s, 1980s that seatbelts became compulsory in the UK, and we really got much safer cars. So now, most motor vehicle accidents that happen in the UK and in Portugal, where you are, yes, you might get a bit hurt, and yes, you will get inconvenienced, but you will walk away from most of them. It will be a very unusual motor vehicle accident where you can't walk away from it because cars are so good. And I had the privilege to visit the McLaren um, Formula One research center recently, and they invented the carbon fiber cockpit, and all their competitors said that's really stupid until one of the first car they put on the track with a carbon fiber cockpit tumbled top to bottom all the way down the track, and everyone thought that the driver would be dead, and he walked out of the cockpit. And the next season, every single motor manufacturer started to build carbon fiber cockpits. And it's the same with AI. We haven't yet figured out what the safety features are. We haven't figured out what the procedures are, the processes are. It took a long time to go from the Wright Flyer to the planes that you used to fly. And those are out of date now.
Yeah, what I think is going to happen with project management or any career, it doesn't matter, any profession, yeah, is that these new generation, apart from our generation, they are going to develop some skills that they need for their time.
Yeah,
Because we have developed some skills that our parents didn't
yeah,
have, and they're
absolutely.
going to learn something. They are going to develop some skills that we don't have,
Yeah,
that we
yeah,
don't have, because I think it's kind of human evolution. They are going to need some skills in the future. So they don't care about, for example, I was using an example from my grandpa. They know how to build cars made of wood. My
yeah,
grandparent built one for me. I don't know how to do it. And I
yeah,
don't need how to do it because I go to the shop and buy one.
yeah,
So the
absolutely.
next generations, the few in 20, 30, 40 years, they're going to have some skills based on what you're doing right now
Yeah,
that we are developing right now, technology for them.
yeah,
And they're going to develop some skills, even in project management, or we can even imagine
yeah,
that they need that skill that we
yeah.
don't need now.
Yeah,
That
it's a
we don't need
generational thing.
now. They don't
Absolutely.
need
In
now.
fact, one of the things I've got written on my notes is the future project manager is under 16 years old today. Nobody who is anything like an adult is, I mean, yeah, there might be a few, but it, project management will only take a big shift when the generations take a shift. The 18-year-olds today didn't grow up with AI, but 10-year-olds today are growing up with AI.
Yeah.
And therefore, just like, I remember when I first got access to the internet in the 1990s. And
Yeah, I
and
remember that too.
I remember
To
someone explaining to me how you use a browser and
we.
how you
Do you remember that sound?
did you ever explain to your children how to use a browser, how to use Google? No, they figured it out because it's part of the culture. Just the way, we figured out stuff when we were growing up that actually our kids would look, what would you do that for? Yeah, my daughter couldn't believe when I said, when I first started working for my father in his shop, he didn't have a calculator. He had a book of tables. If he wanted to multiply things, he had a book of tables. So and I learned how to use it. He said, "Oh, I did. How did you know how to use it?" And I said, "Well, you just figured it out." And he said, "Oh, I had to learn how to." Yeah. So I figured out how to use a book of tables and stuff. 10-year-olds will figure out how to use large language models, and then when they are our age, they'll look at 10-year-olds and think, "Oh God, how are they doing that? The world's going to change."
It's kind of nostalgia or something like this,
Yeah.
but they don't have it. They don't have it. I think this is things will change. Things will change. I think no label management, no label management is going to be the future about use whatever you want, combine them whatever you need it. And some people say, I was doing a training yesterday, and they say, "Mario, okay, you were doing this kind of approach in a project right now. Can I shift the approach during the project?" Of course you can.
Do what you
The
like.
environment changes. Okay, can I use Prince2 now and next month I can use Scrum combined with PMBOK? Of course you can. Of course you can. If the environment changes, the needs change, do it. That's why
Yeah.
you need a big toolbox, as you said before. Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
you need a big toolbox and how to use them, when to use them, how to combine them. And now with the aid of data and analysis with the AI something, everything will change. Everything will change.
Yeah.
But my question is just asking, are the data available? Because we're talking about big companies.
Yeah.
For example, you go to IBM, you go to NASA, you go to they get big projects, but a small company, a small startup, they don't have it.
Yeah.
They don't
But
have.
they will. They will increasingly because it will start to become a business. It will, like everything, it'll start out as a business differentiator in whatever niche you're in, and then it will become a business necessity to survive.
Yeah.
So it will, and also, um, I would not be surprised if data seeps out. It seeps out of organizations, and
Oh,
the large language models, the general large language models will absorb it, and small organizations will get the benefit of leaked data. It will not be as precise for them and as tailored as if they had their own data sets, but it will be there. I mean, you can get remarkably good answers to astonishing questions now. Everyone who is interested in AI has played around with these large language models, asked questions, and been shocked by how good the answers are. And that is, it's back to it's the Arthur C. Clarke quote that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. When I'm tomorrow in the UK, there's a charity called Macmillan, and they're a cancer research charity, and they host
yeah.
they advocate once a year a coffee morning, and people come to the coffee morning and they donate a bit of money for a cup of coffee and a chat with people who come. And I decided to do an online version of it. And one of my guests said, "Oh, can you fax me a cup of coffee?" And I thought that's a bit of a joke. So I will fax you a cup of coffee. So I replied on LinkedIn. I thought I'll reply on LinkedIn with a fax of a picture of a cup of coffee. That way people used to kind of use typewriters characters to draw pictures by kind of
Yeah.
having different densities to create light and dark. And I thought, well, let's ask ChatGPT to do me one. And it did me one. It was rubbish. So I said, no, 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 no. I want something, that looks like it's shaded and three-dimensional using different weights of characters. The second one it did was absolutely brilliant. Two prompts. And I didn't spend any careful time crafting the prompts. Two very simple prompts got me this picture. And it feels like magic because I understand the concepts behind AI, but I don't understand how it works. It's just like kind of understand the concepts behind a television or a mobile phone, but could I explain to you how each bit of it works? No, of course I couldn't. But each generation will grow up with a technology that they take for granted.
They need for that time. They
Yeah,
need for that
yeah.
time.
And I just think back to, my parents probably kind of when they got their first television, they thought, what wizardry is this? And
Why do you need this? I didn't have it when I was a kid. Why
yeah,
do you need
yeah,
this?
yeah.
Oh,
And it was exciting. And at some point they started to take it for granted. Um, and it AI will change, and it's probably easier to see this big picture of what things might be like in 100 years' time than it is in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
Because I think in 100 years' time, AI will be a mature technology and everyone will know how to use it effectively.
It's impossible to say what's going to happen in 5 years, even in
Yeah,
2 years,
yeah,
even 2 years.
yeah,
Nobody can predict what's going to happen in 2 years. Nobody.
yeah, yeah. And although there is one, you asked a question about the future of project management, we've quite rightly focused in on the disruptive impact of AI and data. But I think there's one other trend which I'd like to highlight, but rather like in this conversation in the real world, it gets thought of as an afterthought, and it shouldn't be. And that's, one thing we do know for sure is if we do nothing positive to fix the situation, the next generation and the generation after it will be living in a planet that is very different to ours. It'll be hotter. It might be wetter, it might be drier, but it will certainly have different distribution of water. It probably will have less easy access to fresh water, but higher levels of ocean water. It will have arid areas which are now fertile. It will have fertile areas which are now icy and tundra. And chances are there will be a period of mass human migration like the world has never seen, that will make, the 100,000 people who came into the UK illegally in the last few years seem like nothing. Um, and I think as project managers, since we are building the future, we are building the processes, the tools, the systems, uh, the services, the products that people want, need, demand for tomorrow, we need to be thinking about how do we really force the conversation about making them sustainable, about taking the opportunity to regenerate the environment as we do it. And I know in parts of the world politically, this is really, really difficult. I don't, in fact, I suspect there is no part of the world where it is politically easy, because it costs money.
Nowadays, it's
But,
impossible.
but, you know, you and I grew up on a very simple model of risk management, which is that a risk is uncertainty that has an impact.
Yes. That's the
And
traditional
those of us
definition.
who are a bit more sophisticated also
Mm.
know that risk has proximity. It will either hit tomorrow or in a week's time or in a month's time or in a year's time. And the problem is that democracies have a 4 or 5 year cycle. So any risk that hits outside of that re-election cycle isn't going to win votes today, because so we've got this big problem that we've got a near certainty that in 50 years' time, if we don't do anything, the world will be in a terrible state.
Yeah.
Uh, so probability high, impact high, proximity, well, you know, it's a long way
Nobody
off.
knows.
And
Nobody
and
knows.
therefore, even the politicians who, for want of a better word, believe in it, understand the science, know it's going to happen, are forced by the politics of their countries to say, but actually, we're going to solve today's problems first and worry less about it. And so and I think as therefore, as we as project managers have to learn to understand more about what we can do to make a difference. And, you've got organizations like GPM and their alliance with PMI are doing
Mm.
great work, but they're providing an infrastructure and advocacy, but I don't yet see a mass incorporation of that thinking into huge numbers of project managers' toolkits. They've got GPM has produced sustainability toolkits and standards and best practices and all of this stuff. But how many project managers are studying that stuff and thinking, great, I can add that into my project toolkit?
Integrating them in this project, in their projects, and so it's hard.
Yeah, it is. And of course you will run up against, your funders and your budget holders and your sponsors saying, well, can we afford to do that? Um, we need to find a way of saying, can we afford not to?
That's it. Mike, okay, we are. Oh, we have a lot of time here. It's more than 1 hour. Mike, Thank you very much for your advices. Thank you very much for your foreseeing for something when you're foreseeing the view. Thank you very much for the feedback for the okay, this is what happens. See, it's important to understand the future,
Mm,
to see what's going on, to make maybe you are aligned on that, if you're aligned or not with that. But it's important to see what happened before,
yeah,
what's happening right now, and see where we're going to. I think it's not possible to understand what's going on in the future if you don't understand what's going on now and what's happened in the past. So
yeah.
we came this what happened in the 90s and now we're going here. It's better for the people to understand that. I appreciate a lot of time you spend with us a lot. If you can give me some final words.
Final words. Well, if the world's changing, if we don't change with it, we're going to get left behind. And
Well,
I think, the I have a second YouTube channel called Management Courses, which is about management rather than project management. And I end every video with the two words, keep learning. And it's a good last two words for this conversation because if you are not imminently going to be retiring, then you are going to be living through these changes and working through these changes. And at the moment, understanding sustainability and understanding data and understanding artificial intelligence and having a huge toolkit of different ideas to bring to bear on your project, at the moment, that is a differentiator that will make you a better project manager than other potential project managers who are competing for the interesting work that you want to do. But
great.
if you don't get that, then in 10 years' time, it won't be a differentiator. If you don't have it, you will be useless because everyone else will. You'll be the only one who doesn't have it.
Yeah,
And
the default.
therefore,
Also
there
be a
not
default.
only will you not be available, chosen for the best projects to deliver, you'll be struggling to find any project that's worthwhile that will take you because you won't have it. And the only way you can counter that is to keep learning.
So sustainability, data, AI, and profusion of methodologies.
Yeah.
That's it. That's good.
Profusion of methods,
Methods,
not
frameworks, methodologies,
fewer
whatever you have
methodologies,
available
more
for us.
methods, ways of
Yeah.
ways of doing things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And keep learning
Guys,
about all of them.
thank you very much for being with us. If you like this, just share, like, whatever. If you didn't download the Flex model, guys, please download the others here. If you get in touch, you want to get in touch with Mike, we're gonna have their contacts here down here on the cards. Please get in touch with him. Look out for their trainings. It's online project management training. It's very, very, very a lot of things we do. I haven't checked this. And Mike, thank you very much. Hey guys, see you in the other video. See you. Be Flex.
Take care.